All right, section 6.6. We're going to start by defining some things that we know we've heard these before in the past, but we're going to go ahead and finally define them so we can start using them. The first one is a trapezoid. Trapezoid is a quadrilateral with exactly one pair of parallel sides. The bases of a trapezoid are the parallel sides, and the legs are the non-parallel sides. So real quick, looking down here, we can see the markings that say that these are parallel. So these are the two parallel sides. They are the bases. The non-parallel sides are the legs. Base angles are the two angles that share a base of a trapezoid. So there are two pairs of them. We have base angle, base angle, base angle, base angle. An isosceles trapezoid, so we'll get more specific here, is a trapezoid with legs that are congruent. And then here comes our first theorem, theorem 619. If a quadrilateral is an isosceles trapezoid, then each pair of base angles is congruent. So that means angle R is congruent to angle A, and angle T is congruent to angle P. So CDEF is an isosceles trapezoid, and the measure of angle C is 65. What are measures of angle D, E, and F? So from theorem 6.9, we know that the measure of angle F is 65. The measure of angle D is going to be 180 minus 65, which is 115 degrees. And the reason being, if these are parallel lines, this is a transversal. That means that D and C are same side interior. And the measure of angle E is also 115 because of theorem 619. All right, try again. If the diagram PQRS is an isosceles triangle, that's key there, and the measure of angle R is 106, what are the measures of angle PQRS? The measure of angle S is also 106. Theorem 619. Measure of angle Q is 180 minus 100 is 80, minus that 6 is 74 degrees. Measure of angle P is going to be equal to the measure of angle Q, which is 74 degrees. Theorem 620. If a quadrilateral is an isosceles trapezoid, Theorem 620. If a quadrilateral is an isosceles trapezoid, then its diagonals are congruent. So the measure of AC is equal to the measure of BD. Theorem 621. If a quadrilateral is a trapezoid, then the midsegment, a word that we have had before, is parallel to the bases. So here's that midsegment. Since it's a midsegment, yes, it splits those legs into two congruent halves. The length of the midsegment is half the sum of the lengths of the bases. So Mn equals 1/2 Ra plus Tp. So QR is a midsegment. That means that QR equals 1/2 Lm plus Pn. So that means x plus 2 equals 1/2 4x minus 10 plus 8. Just take your time with this. Do what's inside parentheses first. Distribute that 1/2. That's going to give you 2x minus 1. That's going to give you 3 equals x. So it only asks us what x was. X is 3. But if we wanted to, that means this is 5. This is 12 minus 10, which is 2. So 5 is 1/2 of 8 plus 2, which is 10. Good. Try again. We're going to go straight into the algebra this time just to speed it up here. 2x plus 11 equals 1/2 of 10 plus 8x minus 12. X is 6. So it says, what is mn? 12 plus 11, 23. All right, theorem 622. If a quadrilateral is a kite, then its diagonals are perpendicular. Also, pay attention here. This is a kite, a geometric figure. It doesn't have any parallel sides, so it's a quadrilateral. It has no parallel sides, but it has 2 pairs of congruent sides. So no parallel sides, 2 pairs of congruent sides. So BD is perpendicular to AC. So quadrilateral DEFG is a kite. So since it's a kite, some things in here that they don't tell us. That means that this is congruent to this, and this is going to be congruent to this. Its diagonals are perpendicular. So right there, measure of angle 1 is 90. That means the measure of angle 2 is going to be 180 minus 90, which is 90, minus 52. Okay, that's theorem 311. Sum of the interior angles of a triangle should add up to 180. And then the measure of angle 3. So I'm going to say that this side belongs to each of these triangles. And that's a right triangle. And we have hypotenuse leg. Because of hypotenuse leg, these two triangles are congruent, which means that 3 is going to be the same as 52. So I'll go over that one more time. It's a kite, so we have these are congruent. The diagonals are perpendicular. So now we've established two right triangles with congruent hypotenuses, and since they share this leg, it's congruent to itself. Therefore, hypotenuse leg, these two triangles are congruent. Therefore, corresponding parts are congruent. CPCTC. All right, let's go through that again. Those are congruent. 90. That's going to be congruent. I actually should go back up. I didn't realize that. I already used 2 hash marks, so that should be 3 hash marks. So if I establish that right now and say hypotenuse leg, these two triangles are congruent, then I can say the measure of angle 1 is 90, because of CPCTC. I could also say they're a linear pair, they're supplementary, so they add up to 180. I can do that as well. 3 is 36. And the measure of angle 2 is going to be 180 minus 90, which is 90, minus 30, which is 60, minus the 6, which is 54. And that's theorem 311, which is the sum of interior angles of a triangle add up to 180. All right, here's a diagram that we really need to understand its complexity, okay? A lot of names here that we've known going back to before preschool, most likely, but we have a 4-sided polygon. We call it a quadrilateral. What we just established, no pairs of parallel sides, it's a kite. Only one pair of parallel sides, it's a trapezoid. A more specific trapezoid is an isosceles trapezoid. 2 pairs of parallel sides, it's a parallelogram. That parallelogram can have 4 congruent sides, making it a rhombus. It can have 4 right angles, making it a rectangle. It can have both of those things and be called a square. Make sure you understand that. Go through it a couple times. You will have to classify quadrilaterals as the most specific type. Okay? Here's your homework. Take a look at those. Make sure you email me any questions. Tune into office hours. Make sure you guys are staying in touch with either me or maybe a friend that you like to study with. Just don't fall behind. Make sure you get any of your confusions, any questions answered and clarified.